My name's Michael O'Connell. I'm a retired lieutenant from the New York City Fire Department. Uh, Today, I'm 48 years old. On 9/11, I was 25 years old. Just a few shy years before that, I got sworn into the NYPD. So I started off my journey at 22 years old on the NYPD. I spent 3 years there. I took the actual fire test while I was in the police academy, and then May of '01 is when I got sworn into the New York City Fire Department Academy. So you're talking just a few months shy of September. So you join. I always wanted to be a fireman. I mean, it's something that I always had passion on, helping people. I didn't necessarily want to be a police officer, but back then you can't do this now, but back then, when you started your time, you were able to carry your time and your money over with you. So I sucked it up. I went on a job that I wasn't too privy to. I wasn't a very good cop. I literally was like, nothing bad, just like I didn't like locking people up. I didn't like giving people tickets. It's just not my world. Like, I spent like my earlier portion of those 3 years. I was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, the 73rd precinct, which is a pretty rough neighborhood. I went in the back of the projects, and I was literally like the official quarterback for the kids that were in the projects. I was playing football with them every day, and I'd walk out and do some community policing. I hung out with the kids up by the train station. There's no bars in Brownsville. Like, they wanted me to write tickets to people that were drinking at 2 o'clock in the morning in parks. I'm like, this just not my speed. So, like, taking the fire test and getting on was like the best thing that ever happened to me. Um, both jobs are a brotherhood, but like fire department, you're living with these guys, like you're eating with them, living with them. You're in quarters together. You're jumping on a rig together. You're going to fires together, and hopefully, God willing, you're coming out together. And that's the end all be all of what we try to accomplish. I mean, we're out there to help people in the city of New York, but uh, most of the New York City Fire Department would be lying to you if they didn't tell you that the most important thing to them is making sure that their brothers get home safe. Um, so a day like September 11th coming, I didn't I didn't know anything. Like, I just got on the job. I'm a probie in very controlled environment at the academy, doing whatever they teach us there. Engine operations, ladder operations. You do some sort of physicality. They're basically bringing you up to really be mold you into the best form of a probie that you could be. Like, this is the job, but get to your firehouse, shut your mouth, keep your ears and eyes open, and do what you're supposed to do. Like, the firehouse dog is more important to that firehouse than you are when you first get there. So, like, that's just the way it is. So, like, you recognizing right away, like, these guys are training you to be like, to be one of them, but that's not going to come for a while. Um, it just so happened when I was in the academy that summer of '01, um, the fire department had a job like in Queens. There was a fire in like it's like a warehouse factory kind of hardware store, and we wound up losing 3 firemen that day. And it was on Father's Day, and they call it the Father's Day fire. And I wasn't there, obviously. I was still in the academy, but I think, because it was Father's Day, it was during the weekend. And when Monday had hit and we got back to the academy, you just felt very different. Like, it was like the guys that were teaching you, the instructors that were there, the whole aura of being there, like, it's centered around like losing these guys. Like, you lose one guy in a fire, um, now I know how devastating it is. They taught us, like, you lose one, it's the end of the world. You lose three, it's like Jesus. So we got to go through the process of seeing these families and going through funerals and doing everything that you would do on a line of duty incident, a line of duty death, where these 3 guys had lost their lives, these 3 heroes. When you fast forward from Father's Day to September 11th, I was home at my house on Long Island. Uh, my phone rang, and a friend had like called, and he happened to work in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and had a direct view of the Trade Center. So, like, he saw it. I mean, he didn't see the plane go in, but he knew something was going on at the Trade Center because he saw billowing smoke coming from the Trade Center. And the only fireman he knew, he called, and he's like, dude, I don't know what's going on, but something had to have crashed. There's a huge fire at the Trade Center. So, something of that magnitude, is on the news. I threw the news on. So him and I are talking. He worked at a coffee factory, and he's looking into the Trade Center, and I'm seeing what I'm seeing on TV. We're watching together, and during that time is when the second plane came in. So then you know that you're under attack, and this is a terrorist attack, and we both witnessed that like firsthand in that moment. I'm literally in Nassau County, Long Island at the time I'm living. I happened to get my car, and at the time, during the academy, we had been sent out into the field. You do 14-week rotation while you're in the academy. You do 7 weeks in the engine and 7 weeks in the truck. I was assigned to engine 273, ladder 129, which was in Flushing, Queens, and I got from uh, Westbury, Long Island, to Flushing. It had to be like 10 minutes. I was flying. It was a beautiful morning. There was no traffic on the road. I flew right into the firehouse. Obviously, the scene when I walk in, the amount of guys that already got there, the crew that's already working, everybody's just very like, you're in awe, you're in shock as to what's happening. Um, and I'm clueless. Like I don't like I'm a probie. I literally have this much time on the job. I don't know my ass from my elbow. I'm lucky if I have the ability to go into the sink and clean pots and pans and jump on the rig with these guys and know what we're going to. Make a long story short, uh, we happened to be in the environment where um, we were a staging area um, for Ground Zero. Like we were first due to Shea Stadium, which is now Citi Field. So being first due to Shea Stadium, they used Shea Stadium parking lot as a staging area to bring Queens companies. They were busing us in. So um, we were getting reports. Like every bus had teams, and you were assigned one officer per and three firemen. So you were a team of four, and they were kind of like sorting you out there. So I had my captain, which was Captain Shelly Barakis, and two other firemen with me, and we were a team of four going in there for the day. And I remember this vividly. It was like right around the time that we would, coming down the West Side Highway, that we got reports that other planes were hijacked, that one went down in the Pentagon. I don't remember or recall hearing about the plane that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, but I just remember whoever was like the commander of that bus when we were going in, he was giving us reports as to what they were hearing. And he said there were numerous planes hijacked. Um, and then during that ride is when we had heard that um, the tower had collapsed. Uh, and somebody had looked at me. It was a senior man. And he's like, "Do you know how many guys we just lost?" And like the truth was, I had no. How would I know? Not because I wasn't there, because I wasn't privy to know how many companies would be assigned to something of that magnitude. That would be that job. How many guys would be running into that building, or what uh, uh, the commanders would do in that instant. Like, are we going to keep sending guys in and sending them up, and we don't know what's going on? So I had no clue. But him saying that, I'm like, it hit home in like one instant that like this is beyond serious. I mean, beyond having planes flying into buildings and how many casualties came out of that, and the amount of people that could be possibly stuck above that scene, civilians that worked in the buildings. Numerous planes are hijacked. Um, Huge terrorist attack going on. Our country's under attack, and I'm a 25-year-old. I'm still a kid. Like I had no clue like what was going on, and I wasn't even thinking about myself at that time. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Like I had family, mother, father, two brothers, my crew, friends, the job I loved that I knew I wanted, and like that was it. It was very like minuscule. Like looking at where I am today, married, three children, um, how much I've done in my life of what I built up in like a community, and all of those guys. Like I revert back to like we lost three guys on Father's Day, and they're still heroes. Those guys are incredible. And remember these guys looking at my face saying, "This is as bad as it gets." 343 guys we lost that day. 343. And then I think now of like, and I know six guys were from my academy class. Anthony Rodriguez stood right next to me in the academy for the time we spent there. He was married. He had three children. His wife was pregnant with their fourth. He had left being an elevator mechanic because he wanted to try something different. He had prior military time. He was like, I was one of the youngest in the academy. He was one of the oldest. I think He was in his late 30s, married with 3 children already, had an established business, comes on the fire department. He's a probie just like I am, even though worlds apart when it comes to life. And he's gone. Um, 5 of my other boys that were in the academy, gone. Mikey Kiefer, dear friend of mine from high school in areas of Manhasset. One of my boys that hang out with, party with, play sports with, character amongst characters. This guy knew he wanted to be a fireman when we were at high school. Like mine came later on in life, what I wanted to do in my life. This guy was like, he was all about being a fireman. Uh, he's now gone. And then as my career went on, like I got to my firehouse, you know, literally, graduated from the academy eventually and got to 285, 142. And I happened to meet the York family where Ray York was gone. So he left, he was gone, passed away on 9/11. And I kind of was the guy that came in, was the next guy that came into the engine there. So a lot of surreal stuff.
You lost, over 300 that day, but I'm sure with the related illnesses, you've lost so many more to date now.
And that's where the story just keeps on going. So like day
Yeah.
of, like to talk about like, I never want to take away from like, I'll never give satisfaction to the people that did what they did. I mean, like, that's never going away. I don't even really speak of it. They're scumbags, in my opinion. They're always going to be. They don't like the way we live. They don't like our freedoms, and they need to prove themselves by flying planes into buildings. So that just goes to show you, what you're dealing with. But to go from where we were to where we are, or where we were, really, I should say, because like going into that scene and seeing like we were on like a movie scene, like planes fly in, 200 stories of office building come crashing down amongst other buildings. Um, you know, we dug, we did everything we could to try and help and find, civilians, find any form of life, which was extremely unsuccessful. Um, Finding our guys was the utmost importance in getting them home to their families so they can get to their final resting place. Um, when you first like got to the scene, like for me, we had other jobs of like surrounding areas and trying to build water pressure to get water onto the fire and stuff like that. But like once you got into the nitty gritty of like digging and trying to search and rescue, um, I tell everybody this because this is part of my spiel because it's where I am still in life today, and how I try and be who I am, and as a father, as a husband, as a friend, just how I carry myself in life. Like I don't typically have to remind myself, but when I speak on these things, like this podcast, I tell people like when a fireman first got there, or a volunteer, or anybody that was there to help, when you got onto that pile, if you took a second and like recognized where you were and like embraced the whole scene, it was very surreal and it was almost like silent to a certain degree, even though we were working. Um, all you heard in like a fireman's eyes was this loud, screeching, irritating sound, and most people don't know what that is, but we knew what it was. So when you first got there, fireman, you wear a Scott pack, and it's geared with this pass alarm that's
Mm.
made to go off if you're laid motionless. So when you got there to the scene and you were there, that's all you heard. You heard pass alarms going off, and they were going off to a degree where you're trying to smack the guy next to you and say move around because you got a bottle on and you're not moving because that's what you would do in a fire if you were standing still. It wasn't anybody that was around us. It was the guys that were underneath, and we couldn't get to them. Their pass alarms were going off, and they were stuck underneath that pile, and we couldn't get to them. So that's something that sticks with me like to this day because like those guys were so selfless. They were doing their job like anybody would, uh, being a fireman. But like they gave everything to run into those buildings. They gave up their like where I said where I am today. They gave up their wives. They gave up their children. They gave up their lives. They gave up what their passions were, um, to go and help. And that's like if I can like literally accomplish half of what those guys did on that day over a lifetime. They did it in an instant. Okay. I think I'll go through life being a pretty okay person because like it doesn't get any more selfless than that. I can't imagine anybody coming onto that scene and looking up when people are diving out of, 100-story buildings and looking up and going like, oh yeah, this is just like any other job. When you come up to like a store fire or a house fire or something like, you're pretty confident you're gonna go. You're gonna knock the fire down, and hopefully you'll find help somebody get out of there, or save property. You never really truly that nervous of like I'm not getting out of this. I could imagine that if those buildings were erected when I walked up to that scene and I looked up, seeing what I was looking up at, I would be second guessing when I was coming out or not. So for them to still go in and still climb those stairs and try and help and try and get as many people out as they could, which they did, it's one of the biggest rescue missions in this world, history. Um, Kudos to them. So like going back to those past alarms, uh, I just unbelievable, and can't say it enough of how amazing they are and how big of heroes they are.
I was just gonna say to the past alarms, I was researching when I was writing the short, and one of the videos I found was of, I think it was like a security camera of the pile, and all you could hear was those alarms, and I had to look up what those were, and it was even more haunting to know what they were, because if you don't know what they are, they just sound like alarms, but if you know
It's what
why they're going off, it's like it really hits you, and I can't even imagine being there.
It's impactful because now you're in the moment. So like we knew what that was. We knew what that was, and now you're like, now all you want to do is get to them.
Was that the first thing you heard when you got down there? Like, both the towers were down at that point. Was that the scene you entered in, essentially?
Absolutely.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah, so it's again, it's something that's will stay with me till the day I die, and it's something that's like it drives me. It drives me to try and be the best I can be. Um, it's kind of what like really transformed me, keep going. Like I would go. We were there all day, and we did whatever we could to help, and then we left and went back to the firehouse. And I remember walking into the firehouse that night, it was like, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when we first got back, because they were kind of trying to control like who was there and try and put people on shifts. And really, that didn't come to true like form for a few days. Where if you weren't at your firehouse, that's where you were as a fireman. At least that's where I was. I mean, I went to the firehouse and then they put you on like a 24-hour shift. So if you were 24-hour shift at the firehouse, when you were off, nobody went home. Like you just didn't do that. Like as soon as you were done with your shift, you went right back into Lower Manhattan, and you would get your shit, get ready to go, and get ready to dig, and get ready to clean up, and get ready to look and search, and that's where you were. And that for me happened like, so you got to understand, like I got there sometime in the late summer. Now this is through September. I was in the truck, so I was in ladder 129. This was the second part of my rotation. I should have been out of there within the next few weeks to go back to the academy, graduate, and be assigned somewhere. So now that this had 9/11 happens, like the last thing they worry about is the probies that are out in the field. Like they just kept us there, and we worked like just every other fireman. And then when they really got their bearings was sometime around like Christmas, Christmas time, and just before, like I don't remember this exact date of my graduation, but they brought us into a graduation. We graduated, and you were assigned your company, and that's where I went off to 285 142, where started my career, and where I was going to be assigned to. Um, and then I went on with my career, and I studied. Uh, I, I I I passed the lieutenant's exam, and I got promoted. But somewhere along the way, like I was now 31, 32 years old. It was 2000. It was actually December 31st of 2006. So we're talking New Year's Eve night. I had already met my wife. We're married. We had a child. We had got married in 2006. Um, she was pregnant with my first child. She was 6 months pregnant. And then that night, New Year's Eve of 2006 into January 1st of 2007, we had a few people over in our apartment. Just, regular night, nothing crazy. I went to bed that night. And the next day is when my life really changed, because somewhere over the course of the night, something presented itself, and I woke up in like a really bad fever. I was profusely sweating, and my body had like, it happened overnight. I had blisters all over my body, like these
Wow.
marks. My body inflamed, blew up, and like woke up like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is
Yeah.
this? because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm sick, I have the flu, I have a fever, I have this and that. Like, let me get to the doctor. There was more to it. Like something was attacking me, and
Mm.
I didn't know what. And I started backtracking. Like, is this? I've never had mono before. Is that what this is? Is this something I ate? Is it like what the hell's happening? Like I was perfectly fine 8 hours ago, and now I'm like deathly ill. So got to the doctor, um, just a regular internist, and they did a chest X-ray, gave me a rundown, and then I guess when they saw the chest X-ray, they actually couldn't see my lungs. That's how swollen the lymph nodes in the chest X-ray were.
Wow.
Um, that they then at that time, my brother was working in Manhasset. He was administrator in the hospital, and that practice knows who he is. So they said, we're going to send you over to your brother. They have a CAT scan ready. There's more testing we need to do. And I'm very jovial, joking person. I break chops like no end. She's pregnant. I'm trying to make light of the situation. I'm like, whatever, it's fine. So let's just go do this next test. And they do the CAT scan and then bring us into a room where my brother's there with the doctor and my wife, pregnant. And they break the news to me now. They read the CAT scan as like, you have an advanced case of lymphoma here. Like we can't even see your
Mm.
lungs. That's how much the lymph nodes are swollen. So we're gonna like get a hospital bed, biopsy the lymph node, make sure this is what we think it is, like being some form of cancer. And this is what we're seeing, extremely advanced. So now we went from like, I'm this ball breaker and I'm clowning around. I'm trying to keep her kind of like somewhat sane. And my brother's like, normal dude, stoic, like, he doesn't really get emotional. Like, see the look on his face. And I'm like, this isn't fucking good. Like, something's really wrong here. The fact that they're going to be, cutting me open and biopsying shit. So, um, day of, like, I'm in a hospital bed and some dude walks in and he takes the sheets down off the bed and he's just watching me over. Young doctor, not young, but like, probably right around like maybe a little bit older than I was at that time. He's in his maybe late 30s, and he's a pulmonologist, and he's like, all he says to me is like, he's like, you're fine. He's like, you're gonna live a long, healthy life. I go, the fuck just happened? Like I went from like having cancer and saying I might not have much that longer to live. I'm fighting to maybe just see the birth of my child, which should be in a couple of months, to like you telling me we're all good. I go, can you tell me what's going on? He's like, well, listen, I can't be certain unless I get the right test that I need. But from what I'm seeing, your body inflammation, your joints are being attacked, your skin's being attacked, the lymph nodes are there. She goes, you have an autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis, and I'm going to send you for testing outside of here because we don't do it, but it's called a Cavine test where we're going to biopsy your skin and
Mm.
we'll know, or pretty certain we'll know whether you have that or not. And he's like, you're going to go through shit for a while. And I did. I was like, I wasn't on my deathbed when I could tell you that it was the sickest I've ever been in my life for about a good month or two. Like I was
Wow.
like crazy 103, 104 fevers. Like she had to change the bed sheets sometimes 2 times a night. I would have to go from being like profusely sweating and like rip the sheets off and be like, I can't control this heat, to like freezing. And then I have to be in like scalding hot baths just to get my body temperature under control. And then it was like back and forth. Like, I had to like, crawl because I couldn't even walk. That's how swollen I was and how much this was attacking me. So, with the proper help and treatment, and I mean, they were hitting me with everything, steroids and all this other crazy shit. I eventually got myself regulated to the point where I don't know if it was under control or not, but I didn't want to stop being a fireman. I wanted to keep working. So, like, a few months later, I was like good. Like my boys covered me at the firehouse because we could do mutuals and stuff. I took a vacation. I tried keeping it as much at bay as I possibly could, and I got promoted to lieutenant. So I went through flips, which is the school of being an officer. I came out of there. I got assigned to the 3rd Division in Manhattan. Um, and then within like a month, I had a high rise fire uh, in Midtown, 54 and 4. I was working in 4 truck. I wound up going to the floor above. It was completely banked down. I was breathing in a bunch of shit. And the very next day, I was back in the hospital. So
Wow.
it kind of like that sealed my fate to say, like, if I can't like be in this environment and know that every time I go to a fire or I go to something happening, and I live in a garage. Like that's where I go to work. I go to work in a garage. Like shit happens to the trucks. There's fumes always coming out of them. Like you're not in the greatest environment, even where you're working. Like how can I be sure that I'm gonna be able to get through this job in one piece? So that's when I kind of like presented it like to the fire department, and I was under their care and showed, and doctors like unbelievable. Dr. Prasad, I've been under his care for so many years. He's a genius. Um, just took me under his wing. He's like, listen, I called this, I knew this was coming, and you know, truth be told, like, unless we knew that there was no way that you were going to get some sort of reaction from this, from, being a job, like, can't make you full duty. So, I had to go on light duty. I then started, transitioning from being a light duty fireman into my retirement. Um, it was devastating because, like, fire department's the greatest job in the world. And, like, nothing can compare to it because of the family you embrace and the people you love that are there. To have that pulled away from you just sucks. So I knew that some way, one way or another, I would find my way to not work and make money and shit like that's point. It's needed, but that wasn't what the driving factor for me was. I love helping people. So the first thing I did when also I needed to take care of myself was I started calling to see like what's going on with people that are getting sick like this. Like I've had people die within that time frame of me being sick, and like Buck Delano from my firehouse died of cancer. Like my boy Richie Scola had left asthmatic and he got off the job. Like people were starting to get sick more frequently and either having to get off the job or they were passing away. And I knew it was happening. But when I got sick, it really hit home where I was like, this is real, man. Like this is some serious shit that we're all going through. And it seems like it's not just like when is the fucking hammer gonna drop on you? It's like if it's gonna be like when is it coming? So like I made some phone calls to like not just protect my family, but to see is there anybody out there doing something about this? Is there somebody fighting to make sure that not just the widows of 9/11, but the people now that are getting sick, are there benefits for these people? So I found John Feel Good
Mhm.
Foundation, Kenny Speck, Richie Palmer, Mikey McCauley, Michael Barish, like all this whole crew, the volunteers, like firemen, like um, so many people that I met that I can't like mention them all right now, like unbelievable souls. Phil Rizzo is like, correctional officer. He's going through cancer himself right now. Like these are guys that I would travel down to Washington with. And for years, again, I was a probie. I'm 30 something years old, just got sick, just got put off the job. Keep your mouth closed, keep your eyes and your ears open. We'll walk in the halls of Congress and we're going to fucking fight for everybody. And we're going to make sure that the 9/11 community is not just not forgotten, but they are going to get what they deserve in healthcare and treatment. So I was all on board. So I kind of put my wife and my children, not off to the side, but like I had to tell them, like, I need to do this. I need to do this for myself. To me, to have sanity of knowing that if I'm going to be collecting benefits on something that happened because of 9/11, there's other people that need it. I'm not going to sit back and have this like these team of people that are out there crushing it to fight for us, and I'm not going to be a part of it. So like I joined their forces, and I can't tell you how many trips I took. I was kind of on the middle end. These guys were already down there fighting for years. John losing his foot, Richie getting sick, Kenny getting sick. They all joined forces and they were down there from like the start grassroots efforts of like not really having an organized, systematic plan. They built it up to being when I came on, they were organized. They had like their shit together. They had everything, team leads. This is where you're going. They had pushing out to who you're gonna go fight with and what you're gonna present yourself with, to like me building myself up to like I became one of those guys team leads and had my own team, and John and Richie would trust me enough to take my team for a day, a weekend, whatever it took to go out there and go building to building, office to office, and put that fight up.
What did that look like for you?
You would travel down there typically night before, stay in a hotel, get up next morning, get down to like it'd be like a staging area. We would meet like outside the Capitol buildings, like by this like like fountain corridor. We'd all park our cars there. We get out. I mean, listen, you met John. You know who John is.
Yeah.
Very very I can't give him enough credit because as abrasive as he is, and he's completely fucking off the reservation. I do love him. He got it done. He knew how to handle this, and knew what to say and who to take with him and who to put together, and who not to put together and who to point in the direction. He had his guys. Like he knew who his guys were, but he was the voice of it, and kind of directed, this is what's going to get done, and you're going here, and you're on the schedule, and you're going to do this, and you're going to go there, and then you're going to report back in, and then we're going to meet up for this, and then if there's one that needs to be really hammered down together, it would be John and his team leads, which would be like Richie, Kenny, myself, Mikey McCauley, like his main focal point of his guys would come to the one meeting. And again, I nothing compared to what those guys were. Like they would speak in the meeting. They would be the ones directing the traffic and holding the weight of the meeting. Again, I would keep my mouth open, my mouth and my mouth closed and my ears and my eyes open, and listen to them go to work. So much so that as the first bill got passed, and I got 5 years, and then we had to go down again, and the last hurrah. And there's so much in between. Like I didn't even mention John Stewart and what a warrior he was for us, and what an integral part of him bringing us on a show and taking this to to national televised circuits and putting it out there and basically shaming them as to like, how are you not taking care of these guys. um huge focal point of that whole transition. So a team of the two Johns along with his crew got to go down there, and I had the pleasure at the tail end of like having not just a meeting with Mitch McConnell amongst that crew of John and his main focal points of like, this is what's going to happen here and this is how this is going to go down, but I got to testify to Congress. And I was one of, I think there was maybe like 6 to 8 of us on a panel, from volunteers to Lila Nordstrom is a student at Stuyvesant High School, FBI agent. Like I flanked two guys, and sadly that I don't know the FBI agent's name, but he passed away. Then it was myself, then Louis Alvarez, who a short time after we testified to Congress had passed away. The guy literally should have been with his family, enjoying any second that he had left on his life, and he was down there sitting in front of Congress. And I'm sure you saw his speech
Mhm.
hit home, and then to follow it up with Jon Stewart's impactful speech, um, just hit it home. So after that, getting that 90 some odd years of healthcare and compensation passed, like put a huge stamp on like what we were trying to accomplish down there, and what I really wanted for my life again, to like help people, and to like, I couldn't crawl down a hall of a fire, but I was going down halls of Congress hoping I was doing the right thing for people just as well.
That's amazing. And do you still is there still reason for you to go down there? Like, I know that was a very big accomplishment in 2019. Is there more that you guys are trying to do now?
There's always the money aspect of things, that like if funds deplete, you'll have to go fight for more. um there's always the As we go further away from 9/11, the more that happens to people. And we're not just talking, responders, people that volunteer, and cops, firemen, construction workers, iron workers. I'm going to mention all these people because everybody was an integral part of this. Like, the NYPD and the FDNY, they get notarized more than anybody. Two focal points, but like there was so many people down there that helped. Not to mention, there were people that worked in those buildings. There were people that lived and worked in Lower Manhattan, the survivors, people that were in that dust plume sleeping maybe a week later. They might have left for the time being, but they came back to their offices. They came back to their schools. The students did. They came back to their colleges. The students did. They came back to their workspaces. Everybody came back. And that shit went on for 9 months. We didn't have it fully cleaned up for. So, um, there's always more to fight for, because as we move further away, more people get diagnosed with stuff, neurological symptoms, gastro symptoms, other autoimmune diseases that might not be covered. Like I'm not an expert of the bill and know every single facet of what's covered in there. The main focal points they do, but I'm sure there's some sort of diseases and things that are people that are being uh, diagnosed with that probably aren't under the bill, that I'm sure that would be helpful to go fight for them. And then there's always John and John's plight for the military with burn pits. Like, I'm always on call for those guys. They know I'll always go and volunteer and help. So yeah, to your answer, there's always a reason to go. Just I need to be. I'm more of a soldier. Tell me to be
You
there, and I'll show up.
tag you in. Yeah, that's awesome. And when it comes to your health, do you still have flare ups, or because you're not putting yourself in those situations, is there less flare
It's
ups for you?
less. It's less. It's something that feels like it's always there. It's like somebody that probably has arthritis, like the joints are always achy or there's something there. But I kind of went on my own plight of like I'm not a big medicine person.
Mm.
I don't like taking shots, pills, this and that. Like if I don't have to, so like I wanted to rid myself of all that. And the doctors had told me like if you get yourself in like the shape that would prevent you from needing to be on medicine. Like the less weight you are, the better shape you're in, the more apt you're going to be to like not needing anything else. So like I went on my own mission, and I'm not that I'm in the best shape ever, but like I lost 40 pounds. I got myself physically fit. I started eating healthier. I started taking things more. I started being more responsible with my own life, and that entailed helped the sarcoidosis. I don't have as many flare ups. I don't have as many problems as I used to have.
Do you do like a really heavy vitamin routine? Like, what do you do outside of, eating healthy, working
Nothing
out, or is it
crazy.
just
I'd say my I stick to a daily routine for myself. Like I hold myself accountable to eating a certain way, to eating in a certain amount of hours, to making sure I'm drinking water, I'm staying hydrated, to like making sure I'm just taking care of myself. I mean, the worst thing I'm like the worst sleeper. So I really am not great there. But vitamins, just your regular shit. Like I have a multivitamin over the counter. I take fish oil supplements. I take like I'm more intrigued by like what typical healthy people do or like a gym guy does to make sure that their body's in optimal health, and it seems like everything else stays put. Like I have ibuprofen, like I ate my friends call them horse pills because they're like 800 milligram ibuprofens, that if things get out of control for me on that side, I have that to kind of fall back on, but nothing from where I used to be. I used to be on like almost a form of chemotherapy medication called methotrexate. That's what they were prescribing me, for a period of time. So I was able to kind of get myself away from all that.
do you still keep in touch with the firehouse? What are you doing now, like post 2019?
Yeah. So I would say that my crew from the firehouse, the guys that I'm closest with, like we're always within a group. We're always an arm's length away. We still have functions. We still go to the fire department events, so we get to see each other. I love playing sports, so like I'll still jump on the ice with them and play hockey. I used to be on the FDNY lacrosse team. I don't play for those guys anymore, but I try and stay connected to that crew, just even through messaging, seeing guys, and just staying active with them. What I'm doing now is like my journey of like going from where I was health wise to now. I try and help people in that health department. Like I do accountability coaching and try and help people get healthy. On top of most recently, taking a shot at going to consult for Michael Barish. I was always leading people in his direction. He's a great guy. He's got he came to Washington with us. He walked the halls with us. He was there, through that stage. So he put in that fight with us. So like he's unbelievable at what he does and taking care of these people. Like we got the bill passed, but he's the guy that gets you your benefit. So like I was always directing people in his direction just because like I want you to get the best care you can get, not just health wise, but getting the best benefit you can get. So I would push people in his direction. So now I'm taking crack at actually doing exactly what I was doing before anyway, going to events, speaking at events, trying to advocate for the 9/11 community, doing outreach. It's a big part of my life. I just really feel strongly that everything happens for a reason, and like my world of not being a fireman because I got sick led to me going to Washington, led to me just being an advocate for the 9/11 community. So that's what I want to continue to do as long as I'm here, and that's ultimately where I'm at. On top of, listen, I'm a father of three kids. That alone is a full time job.
That's
You know,
like three full time jobs.
my friends call me Mr. Mom. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but Michael Keaton
Yeah.
played Mr. Mom, and that's me. That's me pictures. He's got one holding up to the blower, like blowing out the kid's ass in the bathroom. The other two are running around the bathroom with toilet paper everywhere. That's my life. I mean, they're older now, my kids, but that was my life from the time they're young. So I'm trying to also enjoy my life. I've a wonderful, beautiful wife who's kicks ass in life. I have amazing three children. They play sports. They're active in their own lives. I got an amazing support cast and family and friends and people that I love dearly. That I'm just trying to enjoy life. I mean, that crew that day does not get to be here anymore. And the many that gave their lives after because of the circumstance of 9/11, I owe it to those guys to not just do what I'm doing from an advocacy standpoint. I owe it to them to like fucking enjoy my life, enjoy my children, enjoy what life is. I mean, there's so much bullshit that goes on in this world that like I'm so embedded in that. Like I refuse to even put on the news. I don't get involved in politics. I don't get involved in like anything. Like I don't want like we just had another hero die the other day. This young 31-year-old police officer is just doing a routine traffic stop, and some fucking animal decides to gun him down and leaves his
Wow.
wife and 1-year-old baby at home. Yo, she's a widow now, and he's fatherless. That wake and funeral arrangements are going on right now, 15, 20 minutes from my house in Massapequa. It's like if I like centered my life into that stuff, I mean, I have to with that situation because even though I didn't know him, I love him just as much as I loved any of my other brothers. Like he gave his life. He's the ultimate hero. He's just like those guys on 9/11, those 343. And I didn't even mention the cops and the Port Authority officers because they gave their lives that day as well. Um, these guys are heroes. That guy's a hero. Like, but taking aside what I'm trying to say is that if I put the news on, I'd be miserable. Not to
Yeah.
mention I live in fucking New York, which it's never nice here. I feel like I live in Seattle. I feel
It's
like
true.
it's like insane, dude. Like where we are in the Northeast, it's like I laugh. People that are down like south, they're like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I really don't know.
Well, we
Can't
have,
answer."
like, 3 good months, I feel. Like, 3 and then the rest is like, "Why are we still here?"
Who wants to be like a quarter of good? You want to be all good. You
Yeah,
want to
that's
try like
true.
I just came back from Aruba with my family. I'm like, why don't we move here? Like,
Yeah.
it's nice every day.
You can work remote, you know?
We'll see. Right now, this is you got to be where your feet are, and this is where we are. And I'm really I'm pleased with where we are with my family. I'm in love with my life, and I'm happy that I get to do this. With you and for you, and there's so many other people that like come along the way that I know that day impacted, and they try and make a difference. It's just it happens for a reason, and the ultimate is
Yeah.
that like you could throw on the news and people could fly planes at the buildings and like bridge came down the other day. You can throw whatever you want at this country and things people could think what they want is how things could be screwy. And I didn't touch on this, but like 9/11 as horrific as a day as it was, like when you woke up on 9/12 as a fireman and went in there, or when I first got home to my family and friends and realized the magnitude of how far this went out worldwide and saw that everybody had their flags up and then everybody wanted to do something to help and then everybody wanted to come together and it didn't matter whether you were uh, black or white, what race you were, what religion you were, big, tall, short, fat, skinny, yellow, purple. It didn't matter. We were one. Okay. If you weren't a terrorist, you were one with being a great human being and wanting to stick together and build this, not just New York City up, but we were attacked. You wanted to build the confidence of the country back up and the love of why we have our freedoms. And you're never beating that. I don't give a shit what they throw at us. Planes, explosives, nuclear. It doesn't. Like again, unless you like decimate this country, you're not throwing anything at us in the way that you come at us that you're ever going to take away with who we are. It's not happening. So 9/11 happened, but 9/12, in my opinion, is one of the greatest days, and that's what this world has to get back to. You have to get away from being divided. You have to get away from the shit that's 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 making you do the things that you're doing and like making you divided and making you look at somebody else different than what they are. Like come together. You don't need fucking people to fly planes at the buildings and 3,000 people die in a day and maybe 3,000 more people die from their illnesses beyond that. And then all the other shit that goes on in life to make sure that you're a good human being. So that's what
Right.
9/11 means to me now. I will never go away what happened that day, but like I to for myself turned it into that, turned it into something that positive came out of it. We built back up. You're not beating us.
Yeah. It's also like why, to your point, like why do we need a tragedy to get to that point? Why do we need a global pandemic to be able to come together and like it's we haven't learned yet, but hopefully soon we will.
You gotta hope. That's all you have, right? You gotta hope.
Yeah. And so because this podcast it sometimes gets a little heavy, I have three questions that are supposed to be like more fun questions. If you wanna go into that.
I'm down.
The first one is what's the most beautiful thing you've learned doing this work?
It's that what I just said to you is that
Mm,
you can get the shit kicked out of you. You can see the worst of the worst in people and see death and disease and people dying in front of you, whether it was like day or of my boy Ray Pfeiffer. Listen, I should have mentioned him. Um, the beautiful that came out of that was not just the heroics on those guys that day, the heroics of the crew that went to Washington, the heroics of somebody like Ray Pfeiffer who was riddled with cancer and still traveled down to Washington in a wheelchair to not he rolled around the halls of Washington. He fought when he could have been with his wife and his son and his daughter at home. Louis Alvarez, that could have essentially been home with his children, and the people he loved, enjoying his last moments of life, still went to fight. There's so much beauty that came out of that, that still comes out of it, that it doesn't just have to be 9/11. If something bad happens, there's something always that we can learn from it and that we can respond back to. Like when I talk to my crews, like my schools, when I go into, I asked to speak to seniors because they're about to go off to college, and they kind of already recognize a lot of them went through the pandemic. They went through some hard times. They probably went through some relationship issues by then, some bullshit friendships things, boyfriend, girlfriend, fucked up on tests, failed grades. Maybe they've gone through some level of bullshit that kids go through, whether it's, drinking and drugs and shit. And I tell them, like, think of like the bad shit that comes your way. And if you let the bad shit keep coming and let them keep getting to you, whether it's relationship based or something else, then that wins. Your response to that bad shit is where you're gonna find yourself. You have to build
mhm.
yourself up and recognize that, yeah, I might have not made the team, but now it's gonna put me in the gym and I'm gonna get bigger, stronger, and faster, and I'm gonna kick that person's ass next year. I might not have passed this test this time or got into the college I wanted to, but I'm gonna work my ass off to do this. And that goes with relationships, where you want to be, how you want to be in your life, in any facet. So that is the ultimate beauty of what I saw.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's kind of similar to that. I'm gonna butcher this quote, but it's like it's not about the hand you're dealt; it's how you play it. It's like truly the answer to everything.
Everything. Absolutely everything.
The second question is, what is giving you the most energy right now?
Just my family, honestly.
Mm,
I mean, so many times you could wake up and be like, it's not just like, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to get out of bed, but like you have to have the driving force in your life. And when I was unhealthy, my driving force was to get to see the birth of my son Aiden. And there he was in April, and I got to see him, hold him, love him. I got there. Then my son Colt came. Then my daughter Allie came, all along with my wife Rebecca. Uh, they're my driving force through anything. I mean, I have huge, huge support system in every direction of my life, but I literally live for them. I fucking would lay my life down on the track for each and every one of them, and anything I do and have done and will do will be for them.
Last one is what's something exciting you have planned for this year?
Well, nobody's supposed to know this, but I don't know when you're airing this thing. But I told you that I had a house inspection this morning, so we are in the process of moving. If this goes through, like contracts aren't signed, but uh, my wife, myself, and my daughter got in the car, met the inspector at the house with the realtor. Just a kick-ass spot, great house.
Aruba?
Yeah, I wish Aruba. We're moving to Huntington, which again, if it goes through, is like it's just like it's what we've been always looking. It would have to be the perfect scenario. I have a beautiful home. I live in a beautiful community. I have great friends here. Just something feels right about where we're going. for my children, for myself and my wife, for the people that we're going there, with and for. Um, it's just gonna magnitude our life to the place that I think we're gonna be at our happiest. So it's extremely, extremely exciting. On top of like, there's so many exciting things happening. Like, my kids play lacrosse and I get to coach them and I get to see my son's on varsity now. Um, we have really nice trips planned in the summer. I mean, a lot of things are going to be hectic because not anybody in our lives really know that we're about to take this plunge. So things are going to flip upside down. So between me with my coaching business and my wife doing what she does, and then, maybe moving and then throwing on the consulting thing. And it's just like, I mean, when it rains, it pours, but every bit of it's all good things. And, it should be one of our greatest years.
That's amazing. Well, thank you again for taking the time to hop on here. And I've seen your testimony from the 2019 hearing, and just from this episode, it's very clear you have such a gift to advocate and to speak on this. So I really do appreciate you coming on. It means the world to me and so many other people.
Listen, you doing this, like I tell everybody that I talk to, whether it's, somebody like yourself or it's the news or whatever, like, you're keeping this going. You're keeping, the fight alive, and you're doing your own advocacy and outreach. And when people hear this, they'll recognize that there's maybe more to it than they even knew, and it helps from every angle. So you're doing your part, and listen, you have my number. I mean, if there's more to this, or you need me to get more people, or you need me to be on more things, like if I can make it work for you, I will.
Thank you so much.